Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you one of the top Texas singer-songwriters in the state, currently playing with Lilly and the Implements here in the local Central Texas area, Mr. Jon Napier.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Napier. How are you doing? Thank you for joining me tonight.
I'm doing great. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing great. Ready for the new year.
Yeah, Christmas is over.
Yes, sir. Y'all got big plans for 2020?
Hopefully, the Lilly and the Implements record will more than likely be out at some point, and we're booking shows, and I'm looking forward to maybe writing a new record myself.
Really? A solo album?
Yeah, another one.
Well, do y'all have a release date yet for Lilly and the Implements album?
I could lie to you and say we did, but we don't. We don't.
Do y'all have an idea on when you'll be able to finish it?
Well, we're hoping to. We were actually hoping to get in between Christmas and the New Year, but I don't think that's going to happen. So probably right after the New Year, we'll get in and finish. We're either going to cut 3 or 4 more songs or just finish the ones we have, and hopefully, and I don't feel like I'm saying anything anybody wouldn't agree with. I would say springtime, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all got a title for the album, or you're just going to be Lilly and the Implements?
I don't know. That hadn't been discussed. Probably just Lilly and the Implements, unless something else comes up.
Where did y'all record it, down in San Antonio?
We recorded at Cibolo. It's an old friend of mine, Chet Himes, opened a studio down there, and God, don't give me the line. I can't remember the boys that work for him. James and Landis, mainly Chet. I've known Chet for 15, 20 years probably. And it's a great studio.
Have you recorded there before?
No, I had not. I've worked with all those guys. That was my first time in that studio.
Let's go back a little bit. You're originally from West Virginia.
West Virginia, yep.
What part of West Virginia? Was it Morgantown, or a rural part, or?
There's a little city called Parkersburg. It's right on the Ohio River. Marietta, Ohio is on the other side, and I almost said I grew up. That never happened. I was raised about probably 20 minutes from the Ohio River, about an hour and a half south of Wheeling, right up there in the kind of tri-state north central area.
And were you a musical kid or a jock, or what kind of kid were you?
I was all over the place. I really liked the woods, and I really always liked music. But I was all over the place.
What got you into music?
Just music itself, and then my grandma started kind of teaching me some chords and some Carter family music, and then there was a neighbor that taught me some stuff, and then I just, grew up playing with a couple of guys my age, and I don't know, it's just something to do other than drink and do drugs, probably.
Did you have a band, or did you just play, what was your path to get you on stage to singing in front of people?
Well, I'll tell you, and I've been in touch with the guy here lately. He just is finally getting some accolades after years and years. Mike Morningstar is a real important West Virginia singer-songwriter, and he's an activist and just an amazing guy. And I think I was 12, maybe 13, something like that, and went with some friends to see him play. And seeing him play just by himself, I'd never really seen anybody do that like that. And it kind of, I was in and out of different bands, but that was kind of my main thing after that. Because it's always at some point, no matter what band I'm in, I just always end up on a stool by myself.
Right.
And he's kind of been a long time mentor for that,
How did you get to know him? Where did he come from?
Well, he's from Glenville. Like I said, he's really well known around there, East Coast, and just over time, we just became really good friends, and have stayed in touch since I've lived out here. And he's just kind of, I don't know, we just get closer as as time goes by. He's just great. He's a wonderful songwriter and really, really talented guy.
So what got you from playing music in West Virginia down to Texas?
A number of things. There really wasn't a lot to do around there, to be a songwriter or whatever. I always say that if I'd stayed there, I'd still be singing in a Southern rock tribute band, singing Bad Company, but I don't know if I can sing like Paul Rogers anymore, but there just wasn't much, just a lot of bar bands and just biker rallies and stuff like that, and there really wasn't much for being a songwriter, and I was just getting in trouble, and small town. And
is that what you wanted to do, is be a singer-songwriter?
Stay in trouble?
Yeah, well, isn't that the same thing? If you're a songwriter and you stay in trouble, pretty much goes hand in hand.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do what I do now, Never really, I guess I went through a phase where I wanted to make a whole bunch of money or something like that, and I did all that stuff except make a whole bunch of money, and I'm pretty content doing what I do,
Yeah, I understand. So you just packed up and moved down here just because you needed a place to play, or?
My parents were out here.
Oh, okay.
And kind of offered me an opportunity to get out of there. That's how I ended up in Waco for a little while. Everybody that I talked to, when they asked me where I lived first here, I say Waco, and they're like, wow, you're still here. But yeah, I was in Waco for a little while and headed this direction, just all over the place. But yeah, it was just the opportunity, and I knew that there was a lot more happening here than there was there.
What happened once you got here? I know parts of the story. What kicked it off for you and got you recording albums? And you've seen my Spotify feed and what I listen to the most. So,
well, it was a lot of different things. I played around that area a little bit, and then headed for Austin. But probably one of the first major things was, I think it was the second night that I was in Waco. I met Billy Joe and Eddie, and if I was ever questioning if I was doing the right thing by moving to Texas,
Billy Joe Shaver and Eddie Shaver, okay,
yeah, and I ran with them a while, especially Eddie. And it was just a real magical time, and magical, that's a word for it.
Did you play with them?
Yeah, and just hung out and ran around with them and opened quite a few shows and traveled and did crazy stuff. It was just really cool, being where I was from, and all those people seemed like they were from another world to me, and they were people you saw on TV, and then all of a sudden I'm running with them. There's been a lot of that over time, and then when I got to Austin, I started working with Bill Johnson, who I still work with today, and he's a dear friend, and we started recording together, and then I got into the sound end of it, and did a lot of sound work, and then I had my studio in Spicewood, where I did the first album, and 8 years later, something like that. Yeah, it usually takes, I think it's going to take like 6 months, and they usually take 5 years at least. So
was that first one, was that Sun Coming Up?
No, the first one was Find Something New.
Okay.
That was, I don't know if you have that one.
No, you sent it to me. I have it, yes.
Oh, good.
I'm pretty sure I do.
If I don't, bad friend on my part there. If you don't, I'll get it to you.
I appreciate it. I'll wear the tape off the tape is what I tell people is. Come On Out of Me is one of my favorite albums, and again, I mentioned my Spotify feed because Spotify did that thing of what I listened to most this decade and this year, and that was the leader of the pack, basically.
That made my day too, by the way, when you made me aware of that. Made me look happy.
Yeah, it's kind of I won't say background movie. It's a soundtrack for my morning and afternoon. So, talk about recording that one because that's again one of my favorite albums. And
well, and I'll tell you what, that it's nice when people tell me that, because it was definitely one of the coolest processes I've ever done. We started with Justin Douglas back when he was doing it was called Shine Studio, where I had actually recorded stuff years before that, and then it became another studio, and that's a whole other talk. That's a bunch of full circle stuff. But anyway, we started with him. We did bass and drums with him, so we could record. We wanted bass and drums to 2-inch tape, and then we cut guitars and different stuff.
I was going to say that, I mean, you said you end up a stool and a guitar, but that album has so many layers of different sounds on it. That's what gets me. I can hear the solo artist, but that album is not that's a lot of people, or you playing a bunch of instruments coming together on there.
Well, that's what happens when you give a crazy hillbilly a bunch of money and tell him to make a record. Horns. We didn't talk about horns, but
Yeah, there are horns. I think an electric piano or an organ or something in there. And
yeah, and actually that was the. I loved Strange Brew when it was around, and I loved playing there. And Scott Ward, that owned Strange Brew or ran Strange Brew or however all that worked, it was one of the best working Hammond B3s around. And when it came time to cut the Hammond parts, they gave us the lounge side for a whole day, and Stuart Cochran went in and cut all the parts. Then there's some Wurlitzer on there that was cut in Matt Law's living room where I was living at the time, and that's where we cut a bunch of the guitars and a lot of the vocals. We cut some of the vocals at Kenny Williams' studio in Spicewood, and then we did the girls' vocals at All Saints Episcopal Church in Austin. I had done a South by Southwest showcase there and liked the place a lot and liked the sound. And it was, I think it was built like with the Edison design for projection. And so we rented the church for a day and cut vocals there and cut the horns in another church in Round Rock. I can't remember the name of that church. My buddy Colin McDonald that I worked with on a bunch of that was doing some work at that church, and it seemed like an ideal place to cut horns, so that's what we did.
Not bad. It's surreal going from sitting on a stool to going to multiple locations to record different sounds for an epic album like that.
And that's just part of what I love to do. And I was in the mood, quite a big production on that, and we did it. But I have said here recently that the next one I do is going to be, I've done all the big production stuff, and I wanted to do that for a long time with with the vocals and the horns and all that stuff. And I think the next one is going to be back to especially with the last 4 or 5 years, all the stuff that Wes Perryman and I have done, I think it's going to be a lot more like that.
Brought up Wes. You and Wes have been friends for a long time. How did y'all meet? How did that relationship bloom?
Well, it was kind of crazy because, surprise, surprise, back to that studio in Spicewood, when I lived in that area in Waco and around that stuff, Wes was, quite a few years younger than me, and I think he's like 5 years younger than me. And so when he kind of came on the scene playing and stuff, I was already gone, but we knew so many of the same people. And he knew a guy, Nate Rodriguez. You know Nate.
Mm-hmm, I do.
And Nate and I were doing some stuff together, and I actually had started sort of a Leon Russell kind of gospel album, which kind of got interrupted. It was never finished, which it should be finished, but Nate was playing drums on it. And somebody had taken some video during a session, and somehow Wes saw that, and we got in touch somehow. I don't remember how. It was a lot of brain cells ago. I think he invited me up from Spicewood maybe to play maybe in Belton with him. I don't know, but however, he would start coming to Pootie's when I was doing my songwriter show at Pootie's, and we just, every time we got together, it was just a little bit better, and then I started hanging out at the farm, and then I left Spicewood and, lived at the farm, and
I can understand that. And once you know Wes, it's easy just to say, "Hey, I'm gonna live with you." And
well, every time I would go, we would play up there or something. Every time I would go, I was going to spend like one night, and I ended up staying 4 or 5. And then finally, at one point, they were just like, "Why don't you just come home to the farm, dude? Why don't you just come home?"
Right.
And so that turned into 3 or 4 years living there, on and off, I guess. So.
Yeah, and I guess you have to know Wes to understand how that's just normal. That's not a surprising move at all. You just like, yeah.
Oh man, he's my dear brother for sure. Absolutely.
I understand, and before I knew you, I just knew you as Wes's buddy John. But back when Wes was first starting out, and I think I got a picture of you in the truck with him that he used for some of the marketing.
I was just going to say that. I remember the day we were in Temple, and I think we were headed to O'Brien's for something.
Yeah, y'all were in that alleyway right next to O'Brien's,
and you were walking down the street, and Wes goes, "Hey, that's Steve Peters," and that was the day that I met you, right there.
Yeah, I just knew you as, I didn't even know you as Jon Napier, just John. So I got to know you really with Lilly's band. That's when in Salado at Barrow. That was the first time I really got to sit down and talk to you for any length of time, and I've been having a Jon Napier love fest since February. How has it been playing with Lilly?
Well, it's been amazing. Of course, she's an amazing talent, and we're all pretty.
I understand y'all never have had one fight.
And you know how I feel about lying.
Yeah, y'all are good, but the thing that I love most about y'all's group is all 4 of y'all can stand on your own, but together y'all are just devastatingly gorgeous.
Well, it's the way it came together. I know you've heard the story, but Lilly had gotten in touch with Wesley because she had some gig or something, and her and I argue about, we don't argue, but I think that Evan was just hanging out. Lilly says he was there to play, but I think Evan was just hanging out because Evan
tells a story that he was hanging out, I think.
And now, I can't say in Lily's defense, I could have been impaired in some way.
It sounds better to say Evan was just hanging out, and all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I'll play. I'll do it."
Well, I made the joke that day that because she was coming out to run through these songs with Wes, and I made the joke that I wasn't playing bass. I wasn't going to do it. Of course, yeah, you know what I do now, but I ended up playing bass. But I really meant it. Like I wasn't going to play bass, but I heard her and I heard her songs and her voice, and it just kind of, I don't know. That's just where it started, and it's crazy because
for those just the background on Lilly. For those that don't know, Lilly Milford. I'm unapologetically all aboard the Lilly Milford train. That I met her when she was singing for Hangar 24, kind of a rock band in Temple with co-lead singers, her and Megan Day, and she went solo, and just I've always been a huge fan, and I'm just so pleased that she has a band, but even more pleased that she has a band of you, Wesley, and Evan to play with, because it's just the talent on that stage, and I keep saying it is, I want to be your fantasy manager and get y'all on like network television or something, because that's how good y'all are.
Of course, like we talked about, Wes and I go back quite a ways, and we met Evan just, if I remember right, not saying that I do, but if I remember right, it was just a couple of weeks before, we hit it off with Lilly. Evan hadn't been hanging around that much, and Wes and I were playing just an acoustic thing, and Evan came up and met us, and we've just loved Evan like a little brother ever since. And
Evan Shepard, he was playing with South Main, which is now they call it the Lucas Woolley Band.
I didn't know that's what they were called before.
Yeah, they were South Main, and I remember, and it was only a couple months before he hooked up with y'all, and I remember him as a drummer for them. I'm like, man, he had that personality behind the kit, and I'm like, you just gotta do more hair flips and smile more. And compared to that first time to now, he just makes drummer faces the whole show. So and he's a great drummer. So what more could you ask for? And he's a songwriter too.
Exactly right, man. He is becoming a great songwriter and a very thoughtful songwriter, and just a very thoughtful musician. And he really has an all the way around feel for stuff, and he's just funky. Great dude.
So something we skipped over through all of this is you're just drifting around playing music with all these great people. In the middle of it, you got kids and all that going on. How do you balance or not balance? I mean, it's hard enough to balance it without gigs at night, but how do you balance all that?
Well, I have a very patient ex-wife, put it that way. Who is also an amazing singer-songwriter.
Right.
It's definitely not conventional, and, I'm certainly not rolling in the dough, so it just takes a lot of understanding and patience on a lot of people's part.
And you still play with your ex-wife on occasion, just recently, as a matter of fact.
We did. Just a couple of weeks ago, we played Hole in the Wall. She's got I think it's a monthly or twice a month show she does there. Yeah, it's always fun. We've written some good stuff together, and I always enjoy singing with her. She's got one of my favorite voices. And we have 3 wonderful kids, and they're all really talented, and we're just pretty fortunate to get along. And
nice. Did you get to see your kids for Christmas? Did they have a good Christmas?
I did. We spent Christmas Eve and part of Christmas Day together. Yeah, it was wonderful. Absolutely.
Very good.
How about you? How was your Christmas?
It was great. We're doing new stuff with Hello Texas coming up, and I don't know how far back you know me, but for some reason I dress up as Santa Claus on Christmas Eve and pass stuff out to people just because, for no other reason than I try not to do anything halfway, and my kids got a lot out of it. So we used to make like 30 dozen cookies and pass them out to homeless and fire departments and that kind of stuff. And last year we kind of lost the spark. It was too cold and nobody wanted to open the door. And so this year we decided that we were just going to focus all our efforts on one person or family. There's a lady that I know from the concerts at Chef's Barbecue in Belton who's pregnant, a fiance that travels and has a cute little fourth grade kid. So I gave him a Wii, and we raised $600 and gave him a laptop and some stuff to help out with the baby and help them communicate long distance when he's on the road with his job. And
great.
It was really cool. And then behind that, my kids got everything they wanted. They're in the other room right now playing PlayStation, listening to music on their new headphones and all that kind of stuff. So
nice.
Pretty cool moments all weekend long. So, and I'll edit all this out of the phone call because nobody cares. Your influences. What would you call yourself? Hippie soul. I've been trying to tell people how I would put you into a box, and it's hard to do. It's hard to put Lilly and the Implements into a box, which is one of my favorite things about y'all.
Yeah, and it's just that question is always just difficult for me, and a lot of Lilly and the Implements, I think we're all real similar in the fact that we have a lot of different influences, and it's kind of where it all meets, especially with me and Wes. It's hard because I grew up with a lot of gospel and bluegrassy stuff and southern rock and soul music and country music and hillbilly music, and just a little bit of everything. And So it kind of comes out the other end, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard question.
You mentioned doing a Leon Russell type album, and I kind of view that as probably one of your major influences. Maybe am I wrong to say the Allman Brothers? Maybe.
Oh, absolutely.
and some Neil Young in your songwriting is what I hear. I mean, just if I'm trying to figure out where it came from.
Man, absolutely, and you know, Stephen Stills and Dave Mason and shit, Carter Stanley, Ry Cooder, you know, just I mean, it's all over the place. It changes all the time, you know. But, you know, talking about that gospel album, that really makes me want to dig in and finish that thing. That might need to be something that happens. And one of the main reasons that it came out with such a Leon Russell feel, because Sammy Powell was playing keys on it and Nate was playing church drums on it, and it just really had that. Let's see who was playing bass. B.B. Morris was playing bass. I think we may need to revisit that.
Yeah, I'd love it.
That was good stuff.
You mentioned you're going to record more tracks. How many tracks are y'all looking to put on the album?
Well, if I remember right, we've got 8 pretty much finished. And we talked about 3 or 4 more. But then, like I said, we talked about just leaving it where it was and saving those others for the next one, you know, and as a start on the next one. But I'm not real sure. We just kind of decide that stuff on the fly, and I'm sure that everybody else has their thoughts on it, and I'm not real sure. But I know last I talked to Wes about it, we were talking about maybe just going with what we had, and I think there are 8.
Yeah, so. I've seen the set list, and I know most of the songs on it, so I'm just ready to have a see y'all pass out CDs at a show or something, or even if it's a USB or whatever you do.
Yeah.
To get the music out there, that's put on
I agree.
Spotify, all that stuff. I'm excited for everybody else to know about all 4 of y'all. So.
Yeah, it's a great band. I'm definitely proud to be part of it, for sure.
I tell everybody, the whole reason that I'm a photographer of this genre of music is you can listen all day long to old and new stuff, and my favorite music is at the bar down in downtown Temple or Waco or Belton or wherever. People on the corner are playing better, more thoughtful, soulful music than 99.9% of the stuff you hear on the radio or that people are actually listening to.
Well, and I would like to mention that we're just going on a year of being a band, being together, and I just, you know, I want to definitely say thanks to you and Deckman and Winston and
Jason Deckman, Christopher Winston, others from photographer friends of mine
and Becky.
And Becky Steinauer.
Yeah. Like we couldn't. Like there's no way. I mean, y'all are part of our success in the last year. We probably couldn't have afforded y'all.
Eventually, you'll be able to pay me if y'all get big enough. You'll be able to.
Well, we just appreciate everything y'all have done and you know, making us look pretty.
That's the easy part. I got on my wall. I got a picture of the 4 of you, and you and Wes are looking at each other, smiling. I think one of y'all told me, I were like, "Can you believe he's taking our picture?" or something like that. So
it's hard to tell. You know, I see those pictures of Wes and I, and usually one of us has some sort of shit-eating grin on our face, and we're usually wondering, like, I wonder what you said, or I wonder what you said. I'd like to know, because that looks funny, you know.
I think Wes told me, he said, did he ask us to smile or something like that? I was trying to get y'all to be all professional, and I couldn't get. It's like herding cats with musicians. I don't know what to do. So.
Maybe that's what we should call the record, herding cats. Yeah.
That's kind of fitting.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
I sure appreciate you sitting down and talking with me tonight, being on the premiere episode of Hello Texas podcast.
That's awesome. That's great,
yes,
man.
Yes, sir. It'll be out there in the Ethernet for everybody to enjoy for billions of years to come. And
billions.
This is Steve with Jon Napier.
Hello, Texas.
There we go.